Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's your favorite history teacher back at you again with another historical video. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit more of the French Revolution. So let's get into it. All right. Chapter 3, Section 2. The French Revolution unfolds. That was your warm-up. So objectives, you'll be able to describe how the American Revolution influenced the French Revolution, compare the Declaration of the Rights of Man to the Declaration of Independence, and trace how views from revolution to radical views of the revolution. It gets awesome. So as you do recall, at the end of our last lecture, the storming of the Bastille, what they call Independence Day, July 14, 1789. That is when the French Revolution starts. So that's where we're picking up. And this great fear is going to happen across France, is going to spread. And as we all know, rumors spread like wildfire. And we all know what wildfires can do here in California. So what the Great Fear was the telling of tall tales about attacks on villages and towns by the army across France. It's going to create a massive panic. There were other rumors about troops seizing peasants' crops, as if they even had a lot, because, you know, peasants are poor. So this great fear created a famine, and the fear drove peasants to go bonkers on the nobles. And at this time, nobles were trying to reimpose medieval dues onto the peasants, kind of like serfdom, if that's what we're talking about. So what the peasants did is they're going to steal grain from storehouses all across these nobles' lands. It didn't last long. However, it showed that peasants were upset with a corrupt regime, someone who supports this style of serfdom. If you know Game of Thrones and you've seen all the episodes, this is season 2, episode 9, and this is what wildfire is. But I mean, why would I show you a California wildfire? Because that's not fun. Let me show you something that has nothing to do with history whatsoever. All right, Paris problem. So we all know Paris is the capital of France, and it's the revolutionary center. And their factions tried to gain power. So you have a group called the Moderates, and they're followed by the Marquis de Lafayette, and he is famous for fighting alongside George Washington in the American Revolution. He headed the National Guard, which was a loose organization of middle-class militia. The Guard was the first to don, I don't know why I always have it at don the tricolor of the red, white, and blue badge that eventually would turn into the national flag of France. However, there was a more radical group, the Paris Commune, and they're going to replace the royalist government in Paris. They mobilized neighborhoods for protests or violent action to further the revolution. They demanded an end to the monarchy, which appealed to everyone, and they're going to spread rumors of the royal family. So that's the Marquis de Lafayette. All right, nobles got choices. Remember, National Assembly are the people that took that tennis court oath. Remember that. You're going to need to know it for your test. So nobles in the NA, National Assembly, decided to end their privileges. Hold the phone. Rich people just decided to give up their privileges. Interesting. All right, so this included manor dues, exclusive hunting rights, special legal status, and exemption from taxes. The National Assembly declared, feudalism is abolished, France is reborn, But contemporary historians note that nobles really didn't give up what they already hadn't lost. So, not that much. Because it's not like people can own hunting rights. You have to pay to hunt, right? Special legal status. They ain't going to get that. All right, so then you have something called the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. I abbreviate it to the .rom. .rom. Or if you include and citizen, it's .romac. But .rom sounds fun. .rom. .romac. See? Can't say it. All right, and that's the Declaration of the Rights of Man. And this is the first step the National Assembly took into achieving a constitution. And this document was modeled after the Declaration of Independence, DOI, Declaration of Independence, where, and they are quoted, all men were, quote, born and remain free and equal in rights. They enjoyed natural rights such as liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. That is a right. The right of a French citizen to resist oppression. Like Locke and other philosophers, governments exist to protect these natural rights of the citizens. That was said in the Declaration of the Rights of Man. More, it also proclaimed that all male citizens were equal before the law. How is that different from the Declaration of Independence? Think about it. All male citizens. Every Frenchman had an equal right to hold public office, quote, with no distinction other than that of their virtues and talents. So anyone can apply to hold public office. That's very forward, very radical, right? I agree. In addition, freedom of religion and taxes levied according to pay was also created under the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. So now you're not charged if you only make, let's just say 5 francs a day. And you don't work Sundays, so that's 30 francs a week. You're not being taxed a straight up $20 franc fee every week or month, whatever may be the cost. So however much you earn, they take a percentage of that. So you have the new slogan, Liberty, Equality, Fraternity became the slogan of the French Revolution, FR, French Revolution, or Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. And I'm butchering the French accent, but that's what we do in history. All right, this is the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. All right, hey, what about women? So women were sadly disappointed by the Declaration of the Rights of Man. You have a woman named Olympe. Say that, Olympe. I know it looks like Olympe, but it's pronounced Olympe de Gouges. Gouges. And she was a French journalist. She is going to demand equal rights for her, quote, Declaration of the Rights of Women and Female Citizens, 1791. So she got to writing real quick. When was the .rom presented? When to go public? I don't have a year. That's cool. I think it's 1790. Let's see. I don't even know what that says. I believe it's 1790. So a year later or 2 years later, whatever you want to call it. And in it, she wrote, women are born free and her rights are the same of those as man. Later in the French Revolution, women were resisted for expressing their public views. She and other women were imprisoned and executed. She lost her head. That's our girl Olympe de Gouges. All right, so women are pretty upset around this time. And October 5th, spurred by ODG, because, we always got to abbreviate names in 3 letters. ODG, Olympe de Gouges, 6,000 women marched 13 miles in pouring rain from Paris to the Palace of Versailles. Versailles, say that again, Versailles, yes, that's where the king and queen live, demanding bread and to see the king. Much of their anger was towards Marie Antoinette, the Austrian-born Queen of France. And she is the daughter of Maria Theresa and sister to Joseph II. You remember, the most radical enlightened despot? You remember. Oh my gosh. Um, and as we've learned, if you haven't heard Marie Antoinette, you'll know, well, hopefully you'll now know that she lived a very lavish lifestyle. She was promiscuous and a gambler. She was against reforms and she was bored with the French court. I wonder why. Maybe. So here's a picture of Marie Antoinette. I don't really want to show you this YouTube video because you're watching a YouTube video about a YouTube video. That doesn't seem, I don't know. So this is a movie clip of the, what was it, it was 2006? 2002? A movie, kind of a rom-com of Marie Antoinette. So I don't know if you want to type this in, look it up. Maybe I'll show it in class. All right, so demands go through lightweight, low-key. The women refused to leave until the king met their demands. Louis had no other choice. The next day, the royal family rode in with the women at the head of the procession with cannon. The king wore the tricolor to Paris. The royal family moved into the Tuileries Palace, say that word, Tuileries, and Louis basically became a virtual prisoner. So bye-bye lands, bye-bye. The National Assembly now moved their headquarters to Paris. So National Assembly put lands owned by the FCC, the French Catholic Church, FCC, under state control, meaning now the state owns the rights to the property that the church is on. And then you have something called the Civil Constitution of the Clergy, 1790, where bishops and priests were elected and salaried officials. And this civil constitution ended papal authority over the French church and dissolved convents and monasteries. Why would they do that? Well, if you don't know, monasteries and convents are kind of like where first edition books are kept, and they teach their monks and nuns and priests all the history. So read the first editions, and those are very valuable. There's a lot of gold, a lot of silver in churches. You dissolve those and put them under the church or the state control. The state gets that money, they can sell it, do whatever they want to do with it. So reaction against this is going to go swift and angrily. Bishops and priests are going to refuse to sign it, and you have conservative peasants are going to reject it as well. So when the government punished the clergy who didn't agree with the civil constitution of the clergy, it created a big gap between revolutionaries, and religion tends to be divisive in history. If you don't know, between Protestants and Catholics, that's a good example. Protestants and Catholics don't mix, and so when you are a strictly Catholic country and the Catholic Church, they own, what is it? I think they own like 90% of the land, and only like 10% of them make up the population. It's don't make it about religion. Oh, I'm trying to say. So a new constitution. So in 1791, the NA, National Assembly, achieved its goal, and they came up with a constitution of 1791. It set up a limited monarchy rather than an absolute monarchy, kind of like the one in England. There was a legislative assembly created under the Constitution of 1791, which was allowed to make laws, collect taxes, and decide on war and peace. Lawmakers were elected by tax-paying male citizens 25 and up. So again, you had to pay taxes, and you had to be 25 years or older. And it replaced old provinces with 83 different departments and abolished old provincial courts and reformed laws. To moderates at the time, the Constitution of 1791 seemed to complete the revolution. But later on, Louis tries to escape. It failed, and now Louis is seen as a traitor to the revolution. That's the 1791 Constitution. So other rulers become fearful. So nearby countries had more border control problems to prevent the French plague of the revolution from spreading. So that was what your one was about. Oh, no, that's the next one. That's the next one. Oops. So you have the emigre. Emigre. I know it looks like emigres, but it's emigres. And they are nobles and clergy and others who fled France to spread the horrors of the revolution. The attacks on their pillars, like, oh my God, I gotta pay taxes? Ugh. Their attacks on their property and their religion. So enlightened despots are going to turn against France. Remember enlightened despots? Joseph, Frederick, Catherine. Catherine the Great is going to burn Voltaire's letters and locked up her critics because they see it as an attack on the institution of monarchy, and they ain't going to have that in their country. Edmund Burke, a British writer who praised the American Revolution, but he despised the French Revolution, and he predicted it would get too violent. And boy, was he correct. Spoiler alert. So the rumors of Louis XVI brought more drama abroad. You have the King of Prussia, our boy Fred, Emperor of Austria, Joe, Marie Antoinette's brother. They're going to issue something called the Declaration of Pillnitz. And in this document, the two leaders threatened to intervene to protect the French monarchy. The revolutionaries took this bluff seriously, and they're going to prepare for war. And the French Revolution was about to get more radical. So you have a group of people called the sans-culottes. Say that, sans-culottes. And they're going to spread their radicalness. So the Legislative Assembly took office October 1791, but they couldn't hold it together. Economic problems fed more renewed turmoil. The assignats, or the revolutionary currency, dropped in value, causing prices to go 0 to 100 real quick. Uncertainty spread again. So the sans-culottes, the working class men and women, pushed the revolution more radical. They wore trousers instead of knee-high breeches. And that's what sans-culotte means, without pants. And no, they're not going around, walking around naked from the bottom down. All right, it just means, I'll show you a picture. You'll understand it. And so they demanded a republic. So within the Legislative Assembly, factions are going to compete for power. And the sans-culottes found support amongst the radicals in the Legislative Assembly. And then you have my most favorite word in the Revolutionary Club called the Jacobins. Yes. We are going to read Harmon, and this word is all over the place. So it looks like Jacobins. They're called the Jacobins. And they were mostly middle-class lawyers and intellectuals. They used pamphleteers and sympathetic newspaper editors to spread the Republican cause. And the opposition were more moderate reformers and political officials who wanted no more reform, the Jacobins. So here you have knee-high breeches. Think of like a football player and their pants going down to their knees or above their knees, and then they got high socks like a baseball player when they pull up their pants. Okay, and then you have the sans-culottes right here without. They're just wearing long pants. They're just wearing pants. All right, so the NA declares war. You don't need to write all those R's. So radicals soon held the upper hand in the Legislative Assembly. French revolutionaries and European monarchs' arguments soon took to the battlefields, eager to spread the revolutionary ideals abroad into the rest of Europe and to end tyranny. So they're going to declare war on Austria and then Prussia and others. And these people who got declared war upon, Prussia, Austria, Britain, Russia, France, not France. They expected an easy win over divided revolutionary France. And the fighting will continue, or start in 1792, and then be on and off again until 1815. To be continued. So that is the end of this lecture. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Your homework is to complete page 119, 3 through 5. And yeah, French Revolution. Getting pretty radical with it. All right, so yeah, that concludes today's lecture. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. Smash that like button if you agree, and subscribe to the channel. Make me that money. And then, as always, stay safe, wash your hands. Peace.